Have you ever wanted to jump into Destiny 2 but don't know where to start? Or maybe you're a current Destiny 2 Guardian but are kind of hesitant to jump into a dungeon or raid. Oh, and for you established Guardians out there, maybe you ask yourself, what do I need to look for when trying to Sherpa my clanmates through a raid? Well, today I have a very special episode and I have just the person to ask those very questions to, Mr. Danfinity. So let's roll. Hey Guardians, welcome to the Destiny Help Desk podcast, a show that's designed to help you with the little bits of the Destiny 2 online game. Hey, my name is Todd the Gator, and whether you're a brand new Guardian to the game or a returning player, I'm here to help you explain the constantly changing dynamics of this game, bring you up to speed, and get you ready to jump in and start your Destiny journey. This is the audio component to my YouTube channel, which is Todd the Gator, 2 Ds and GATR, or you can visit youtube.com/@ToddTheGator. If you're more of a visual learner or want to refresh your memory of today's subject, you will always find a link to the video pertaining to this topic. Just check in those show notes down below there. If you have any questions for me that I might answer on the show at a later time, please email me at toddthegator@gmail.com, or you can send me a voicemail with your question at speakpipe.com/Destiny Help Desk. All of these links will be in the show notes down below as well. There are no stupid questions in Destiny, so if you need answers, please don't hesitate to send them my way. This podcast is here to serve you, and who knows, your question just might help a fellow newer Guardian out there. You can also DM me on Twitter at Todd the Gator as well. All right, let's get into it. Danfinity is a Destiny Guardian who's been a very active content creator in the Destiny community since 2016. He's produced and hosted several podcasts over the years, including being a co-host of the long-running Planet Destiny podcast. He's currently the host and producer of the Destiny Digest podcast, where he shares the latest news from Bungie, interviews key members of the Destiny 2 community, and so much more. He's a musician, a YouTube creator, and Twitch streamer where he helps all levels of Guardians get that loot. He even donates a portion of his ad revenue to his local charity, Second Helpings, in Indianapolis, Indiana. He has a very positive and vibrant community, and the nicest guy who I call my friend. And oh yeah, who can't forget his infectious laugh?
I think I saw a trailer on YouTube or something like that, and something about it enticed me. I was getting back into console gaming. I had been in bands for years before that, right. So I hadn't really played a lot of games. I think the game that I played the most before that was like Fez.
Wow.
Yeah, I played that and BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
I played those two. Okay. And then it was into Destiny. So I've played the Destiny franchise since a little bit after launch of Destiny 1. It was probably within like the first month after I wasn't around for like the Queen's Wrath stuff.
Okay, I'm trying to think back. Okay, because I'm a day one.
Day one was like there was like a Queen's Wrath event where the ship showed up in the tower and everything.
Yeah.
I think that only happened once or twice, but I missed out completely on that. I think I came in a little bit after Vault launched.
Okay.
And
almost kind of at the end of year one, kind of going into year two.
I had like come in because it was available at the library that I worked at. So I picked it up. I played it on a PlayStation that wasn't my own. It was my roommate's at the time. And just kind of fell in love.
I then asked Dan how he found content creation. And here's what he had to say.
I had found Guardian Radio, that podcast. Mm-hmm. And then from those guys, they did interviews with Broman and Goth. And so that's how I found Twitch. So I found the Destiny community, but like as we do it then back in D1 with Guardian Radio, then on to Goth and Broman. And then, I realized that I could start streaming from my PlayStation and started doing that, not regularly, like every Sunday that I wasn't working, I would stream for like about 4 hours to help teach my my clanmates how to do like different raids or Kingsfall, or like just to help out. And the idea was to be an educational tool rather than be entertaining. And then when I started streaming in earnest about, it's going to be 7 years this year on September 6th.
Wow, 7 years.
And a lot's changed. But I started streaming in earnest and had like had a schedule about 7 years ago. That was also around the time that I quit smoking. So it was like I changed out one addiction for
that's
another.
A great trade, dude. That's not a bad trade.
I mean, like, it's a sedentary lifestyle.
Well,
like,
that's true.
So yeah, I have a standing desk to try to like beat up the monotony of that. But basically that's when I started making content. And then I started working with Destiny Tracker back in the day when they like had a stream team and had a podcast, and I was on that, and then on to Planet Destiny for like 4 years until they got bought out. And then now doing my own thing.
What you may not know about Dan is he has an awesome podcast called The Destiny Digest. And he had a pretty cool interview right before GCX. I have to mention to everyone here, you have an awesome podcast right now called The Destiny Digest. And you had Professor Broman on?
Yeah.
Dude, that must have been a great interview.
Weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was, I was nervous. That was another one of those scenarios from like before we started recording of like when you meet somebody that you like their stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a little nervous.
Do you remember the years when they did, the Destiny, they did the streaming live streams where they were telling people how to stream? It was him and his brother, T-Rex.
Yeah.
I used to tune into that all the time.
Yeah. That was an awesome resource back in the day.
It was
like for folks starting out. And, so it was like really cool to talk to him, and he was very gracious with his time and very giving of, and we talked about GCX. It was a lot of fun.
As a fellow Guardian, I had to ask Dan, what keeps us coming back to this game? Why has this game lasted for so long? And why does it continue to keep us playing every day?
I think part of it is number go up, brain chemistry go wow, and so like I think obviously it's designed as a treadmill to kind of keep you coming back, and to like there are some FOMO elements involved, as well as some encounters that feel very rewarding, and so. On top of that, you have on story base, you have this world that's like, it's got medieval knights, it's got sci-fi, it's got like space bugs, you have elves, like you have everything kind of under one umbrella, and they've done a really good job of mixing it to be its own unique kind of homebrew. So plus the gun game's like some of the best in gaming.
The next questions I had for Dan pertain to the new player. As a new player tries to jump in this game, I ask him what mistakes does he think new players make when they start playing Destiny 2? And more importantly, how do they not get overwhelmed with the fire hose of information and content and things to play in the game?
I think people rush in a lot from what I've seen.
Okay.
Is people get excited, and especially when they're playing with a team for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I think people try to rush things when there is some merit to taking your time and pacing it and figuring out, okay, so this wave of ads comes in, there's a champion. Then there's another wave of ads, then there's another champion, but it's of this variety. Mm-hmm. Or like just kind of sitting down and methodically working out what comes in when, how to take that out.
Find the pattern.
Then moving on to the next list and just checking them off rather than running around and being like, everything's hitting me. Cause like it like, yeah, I think another thing, it's not necessarily a mistake. It's something that is not really told. It's not really told to you unless you're paying attention, is to pay attention to your resilience on your character, in your armor, especially when you're starting out. The closer you get to 100, the closer you get to a 30% damage resist from enemies.
Yep.
Yeah, it used to be 40. I mean, like, it used to be much larger last year, but it's a 30% damage resist when you have that. And just kind of focus on getting resilience up to 100 first, and then start tinkering around with build stuff of, like, I want to throw more grenades. Yeah, put it in for discipline. I want to punch things more. I love punching stuff. Strength. Just focus on resilience first.
I remember I had one of our favorite community members, Uncle Scumdeath, come into a raid one time. And I was asking him, I said, well, what do you have for resilience? He goes, what is bloody resilience? What is that?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I would say, like, try to focus on, like, a part of the game that you're wanting to get better at. If it's, say, like, set a goal for, like, I want to do a master nightfall by the end of this week or something. Like, find a way to get to the power level. It'll probably take you a few weeks to do that. But really just kind of, like, set a goal and then, like, bite off the hunks of what it takes to get to that goal. There's a lot of flashing lights. There's a lot of stroby things that can really pull your attention. But I think that if you're going to eat the frog anyway, so just, like, eat it in pieces, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a thing that I use. Usually when a new season comes around, there's, like, a pinnacle climb, and I focus on that. And there's a tool that I use called DestinyRecipes.com.
Great site.
Yes, especially when you're pushing for power, it has, like, a power level progress tool.
Right.
That tells you where you need to focus, like, what pieces of your gear are at a certain light level, at your target level, or under, or drastically over. And then underneath, it will tell you relevant challenges that can help push your light higher and higher. Another thing that, like, new lights can do coming in, there are a bunch of third-party tools that are super helpful in the Destiny community. Like, I have looked at other gaming communities to see what tools are out there, and bar none, it feels like Destiny 2 has not only some of the best third-party devs in our community, but they're able to make tools due to Bungie's API that are just life changers.
I always wondered that, Dan, because I'm like, wow, there's so many great sites to help people make things easier, quality of life, in the game. And I always wondered if Call of Duty had something like that, or even Diablo. Sorry, I say that to annoy people. Yeah, that's a great point, man, because, you know what I use Destiny Recipes for as well? Is, our community has a competition on getting ready for the next season. They have that ready.
Yeah, the checklist.
The checklist is so much fun because you have a regional or a friends leaderboard. Man, Destiny needs to put this in their game. Destiny needs to put leaderboards in their game. Think about the extra content they wouldn't even have to create just from competition that every human being loves to do.
Yeah, it would be cool. It would be neat. Number go up. Serotonin starts to splash. Yep.
Yeah, you ran this lost sector in 5 minutes. I can do it in 4.5. Watch me. The next question I had for Dan is one of my staple questions that my co-host Hazelnut and I ask our guest on our other podcast, Guardian Downcast, which we've been podcasting that for 4 years now. So if you haven't found out about Guardian Downcast, join our Discord as well. It's discord.gg/Guardian Downcast. Or you can go to guardiandowncast.com. So the question I asked Dan was, if Bungie gave you a small team of developers, highly skilled, that could do anything you wanted, what would you do to improve the new player experience in the game and getting Guardians started in Destiny 2?
So for this one, like, when I recently started a new account just because, there was like this weird, there's this weird thing that was going on where I couldn't play Destiny on my main account, but I could play it on an alternate account if I logged in, and it was like an error. It was an error code message.
I heard about that. Right.
Yeah. So that happened probably about like a month or so back, and I started a new light campaign just for funsies. Man, they make that kind of like a mobile game when you're first starting out with like, hey, here's all this stuff, and it can be overwhelming. When it comes to like new players coming in, I feel like while the experience could use some work, I think like if you got some powers a little bit sooner without doing those kind of like side mission-y things, that would streamline it a little bit. Although I see what they're doing when they're explaining what those powers are.
Mm-hmm.
The problem has always been with like streamlining it and making it so it's easier to onboard and people kind of know what's going on. I feel like that opening cutscene that's like 5 minutes long that goes over like the entire history of Destiny. If somebody sits through that, that's great. But I don't know how many people do when they first start the game. I think it's fine. I watched it when I wasn't a new light, and I was like, this is kind of cool. This explains a lot of things. Or gives like a brief introduction to a lot of the themes and the characters that you find in the game.
Right, and they try to move you around to play Crucible. They try to show you, I can see what they're doing as well. They're trying to show you the ropes. They're trying to show you what's out there on that big map.
I guess what I would do, like, for anything, like, because the journey was recently introduced in the past year, if there was one thing that I would do, it would be to make sure that Crucible and Gambit were fixtures throughout their journey, instead of just like speed bumps that you have to hit in order to get to rank 6. And then that's when you start hitting the mountain to climb. I would probably make it so that you have to become a little bit more familiar on that journey with other game modes, at least to put enough time to figure out whether you like it or not. With returning players, the only thing that I can think of is I wish that they did a better job of telling you what was in each expansion for returning players, because that's a question that I get a lot. Like, hey, I haven't played since Beyond Light. What have I missed out on? What do I need in order to catch up? Or, hey, this raid looks super cool. What expansion is it from? And it's like, well, yeah, this one's from Lightfall, and it just came out. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, what do I need to get into it? Like, there needs to be a better explainer for returning players on what is included with each DLC, what activities, so that people don't come in feeling kind of lost or blindsided with bills that they need to pay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just blindsided by bills that they need to pay in order to play like a dungeon for like an hour with somebody.
I will say this, and Hazel and I have talked about this on the other podcast, and it's about this new journey system. It kind of is like a new player experience, because they make you do things that it's kind of like a checklist. At least it gives order to the chaos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there could be a few more things to kind of like make it closer to like being a more well-rounded Guardian, because right now it is strictly PvE focused, right. And even in the later ranks, you see that there's nothing for Crucible or Gambit or anything.
I've said it in the show, and Hazel rolls his eyes. So I'm like, "Where's the Crucible stuff?" And I've had people on my YouTube channel, comment like, "I play Crucible, so I'll stay at 6 forever, I guess." There are some people who won't engage with that system at all, and that's fair. Like, play what you want to play. Yep.
I've got a buddy who's not doing it strictly because he doesn't agree with the system, like with how it's embedded.
Right.
So I don't know, man. Like when I hopped in for that New Light experience, it could have been a lot more confusing than it actually is. But if you pay attention to where they're trying to point you, take part in that journey. That's what I would do.
Okay.
Is I would look at the journey as a roadmap as a new player, even though it doesn't include a lot of Crucible or Gambit stuff.
Since Destiny 2 is now on its 9th, going into its final 10th year of the light and dark saga of the game, The Final Shape, I asked Dan, is it too late for new players to get into this game? Is it just too much to catch up on? And what advice would he have for new Guardians attempting to get caught up?
When it comes to the Light and Dark saga coming to a close, we know that they're going to be continuing the franchise.
Yes.
It also, it makes sense business-wise for them not to discontinue it.
Sure.
And put all their eggs in the marathon basket when that comes around.
Absolutely.
On August 22nd, we're going to find out more about what their plans are, probably for the Final Shape and a little bit beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So my money is on Destiny continuing for at least a couple more years. So if you're looking to get into Destiny right now, and you're looking to start getting into things, I would see if you could find Lightfall on sale or something. If you can find a deal on it and get the one that gives you not only the DLC but the seasons
mm-hmm.
and the pass, if you can find that for cheaper than I think $98 or something like that right now.
$100, yeah.
Yeah, if you can find that cheaper, dive in on that, because a lot of people are playing that material. Now, once you're through at least the initial DLC campaign, I would then go, if you're wanting more, I would then go and do Witch Queen. I think Witch Queen is probably hands down the best campaign they've done.
That's a great story. Yeah, that's a great story.
Outside of that, the pack that has the other DLCs involved, I that's where I would go to. But that is coming from a place of somebody who is privileged and is a content creator and I've followed this for years. And so sometimes I forget that things aren't attached to certain, DLC.
Right.
As I'm playing it, because I'm I picked that up 3 years ago.
Yeah, we take it so for granted, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
When we come back, we talk to Dan about the current player in Destiny 2 and give some tips on getting prepared for the more difficult in-game content like dungeons and raids. And then after that, we talk about the seasoned Guardian in Destiny 2 and how to become a better Sherpa or a better leader in helping your fellow Guardians out there. Hey Guardians, just a quick announcement that I've achieved my first goal of reaching 1,000 new and returning Guardians out there on my YouTube channel as subscribers, and it continues to grow every day. In fact, I've surpassed the 2,700 Guardians mark who have subbed to my channels thus far. My goal is to reach 5,000 by the end of the summer, so please help me in that endeavor if you haven't already. And I wanted to thank you for your support, and hopefully the videos I've released thus far have given you some clarity in traversing all the little things of the Destiny 2 game. As the latest Destiny 2 annual expansion has been released, Lightfall, my goal will be to continue to help new and returning Guardians out there tackle the next iteration of the Destiny universe story and activities. But I'm also going to add some more opinion pieces in there as well. Let me know what you think about those. And of course, don't forget my live streams. So keep an eye out on my YouTube channel for these videos, and the audio components of them will also be released here, right here, on this podcast as well in the future. So if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, Todd the Gator, what are you waiting for? Jump in there and follow the channel, hit that notification bell so you'll be alerted to those videos when they first arrive. So thanks. I also wanted to mention that you can now become a channel member directly to support my content. It's super easy to do. Just click that join button below the video and it will explain the rest. If you become a channel member, you'll receive a special channel member badge that will be visible whenever you comment on my videos and also when in my live streams on YouTube. There will be a member-only chats on live streams on occasion, and your comments will be highlighted as well. So do me a solid and sign up to be a channel member. Think of it as buying me a shot at the bar once a month, just to say thanks. I appreciate you. At this point in the interview, we shifted gears and we talked about the more consistent Destiny 2 Guardian in the game. You know, you've jumped into the game, you've got a little bit of power, you got a little bit of armor, you got some decent weapons, and now what? So we put out some tips for these players that are looking into getting into some more difficult in-game content, like dungeons and raids and high-level deep dives. Let's listen in.
I'm going to point back to Destiny recipes again, because I think when it comes to in-game content, a lot of that has to do with where you are on your light level. And so preparing and pushing that score up, your gear score up, will help out tremendously in harder activities. They are doing more things where they're scaling so that your Guardian is always under a certain level, but they haven't removed power level entirely. So,
Yet.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But,
I still think they might take it out.
They might, but they haven't removed it yet. So
true.
Focus on getting that score up as high as possible when you're starting to take on the newer in-game activities. Now, when it comes to like older raids, most of those are 1600. Most of that is paying attention to mechanics, paying attention to where you are positionally in the game. If you're on the opposite side of the arena from the rest of your team in a raid, most of the time that's a bad thing. Unless it's like, I don't know, like at the end of King's Fall when you're all on different plates and everything. I think just kind of like situational awareness is something. Understanding that like you aren't the only one getting shot at most of the time, I think is another thing that like a tip. And if you're inclined to like look at guides before you get into an activity, I know for some people like spoiler things and activities to be spoiler free, and so I understand 100% if you want to go into the raid without seeing anything. That said, if you're going in for your first time and like rushing your Sherpa, like, come on, hurry up! I got kids. I got a dinner I gotta go to in like half an hour.
How much time we got left? I love that when people say, "How much time do you think till we're finished?" I'm like,
a story that is famous in my community is
I remember.
We were doing a raid and we had to stop at one point, and then we picked it back up another day, and the person was late by like half an hour because they were in an intense game of Scrabble. Like, that's not
okay. Can't you leave Scrabble? You can press a pause button on Scrabble, right?
Yeah, you'd think. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe
it's like chess. You just leave the board, you know. Anyway,
yeah, exactly.
Sorry,
but it like I would make sure that you have some time set aside. I usually say about like an hour or two. Once you start stretching past that 2-hour mark, you're either struggle busting with them or they are making sure that you understand the mechanic,
right,
and really understand it. But for the most part, most activities in Destiny 2 can be done in like under 2 hours. So set aside time. Make sure, you have all the snacks you need for that kind of thing. When it comes to like dungeons, those are 3-man activities, and those are a little bit less intensive when it comes to like the teamwork, because they're built essentially so that you can solo them.
Right, that's right. And you don't go to orbit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's spatial awareness, getting that gear score up, focus on that resilience, kids, and just making sure that you have the time set aside to complete the activity too.
Okay. So you've got that resilience built up. You've got that gear score up. You got your spatial awareness down. You understand how champions form and how they come into the game and the waves of enemies. You kind of got the game plan down. Now you're ready to jump into a raid. So I asked Dan, what do players do to prepare for a raid? Here's what he had to say.
I would say, like, look for spaces that you feel safe in, first of all. There's a lot of larger communities where you can get drowned out very easily. There's a lot of smaller communities that are a little bit more niche, or that some can be like really friendly and welcoming, and some, it's a closed club. You just kind of stumble into it. When it comes to like getting that raid or dungeon for the first time, first of all, enjoy your experience. I think enjoyment in that thing, because it is an accomplishment. I've been with several people when I've been Sherpaing, when I've been a Sherpa for people. There have been several people where it's been their first time running something ever. So you kind of want to. My job at that point not only is as like an educator for like what mechanics are and what we're going to be, and setting expectations for what we're going to see in an encounter, but it's also kind of like a tour guide too. Mm-hmm. 'Cause like, hey, check this out. Like, you know who that guy is over there? Yeah, he's under the water. They're trying to resurrect him. Yeah, that was orcs. You're right. That's from that one video that you saw. It's kind of that thing.
Gotcha.
Or like, yeah, just make sure if you're running with a Sherpa that you're paying attention to what they're saying, and that that you're communicating whether you feel comfortable or uncomfortable with the job. The first thing I usually ask players when we're playing a raid together, if they're brand new to it, it's like, how much responsibility do you want? I can give you as much responsibility as you want, and it may take longer, but you'll learn the mechanic and you'll learn the role that I'm going to put you in. Or like, if you're like, hey, I just want to shoot ads on my first time. Cool. Like, we can do that too. Like, the Destiny raids are built in with a couple of roles that can just do ad clear. And you get to experience the locations, you get to experience some of the mechanics probably, because not every raid has mechanics that can only be done by like 4 people.
Right.
But it's yeah, that's what I would give. Also, going back to like the previous thing of like, make sure that you set enough time. Know that you're not letting your team down, too, I think is another thing. People get way in their heads, and like,
oh, I used to do that all the
at
time.
least from my experience, like, people get way in their heads about like, if something isn't going well,
you're gonna get booted.
Or yeah, and like in some communities you see that.
I was so paranoid of that when I did it.
Yeah. I think there's enough communities in Destiny 2 that like don't do that. I personally, in my community, if I hear that happens, yeah. in my community, mm-hmm. it's a done deal. The person who did that to you is not going to be there anymore.
Yep.
But I think people get in their heads, and if something keeps failing over and over, they see it. Some folks can see it as a personal thing and not as, you know what, we all f***ed up. And that just comes down to setting expectations and explaining the encounter and wipe mechanics.
As I myself try to help community members in our Guardian Downcast community, I asked Dan if he had any advice on how to become a better Sherpa. And he's done it for a long time. And I really value his advice. So for those of you out there who are in my position, where you're trying to help members of your clan or your friends or even your whole community, Dan's got some good advice here. I remember the last part of the Wrath of the Machine raid where everyone had to do their part at Atrax? I can't remember his name. I think it was Atrax, something like that. The boss on the spider legs at the end. Anyway.
Okay.
I remember I would forget to shoot my servitor or something, and I kept messing up, Dan, like 3 times in a row. And when the room gets quiet, the thoughts start running.
Well, in part, like, sometimes when you mess up, you can't help but mess up after that. Mm-hmm. Like, you get the yips.
Yeah.
You get the yips.
That's exactly it. You start worrying so much that you can't even concentrate.
Yeah. So, my experience tonight, we played a vow tonight with somebody who wasn't very familiar with the third encounter.
Okay. Oh, that's a
where
tough one.
everybody has to have a kind of a role. I have like, with my groups, I think I have a pretty good strategy for how to do those rooms and get it done pretty efficiently. I was feeling a little loopy and I was having them grab the nut relic first. The nut is like is this like little pointed
it looks like a nut
looking thing.
Yeah, it looks like a nut.
Yeah, it's a nut. And you fire it at the knights and kill them in order to increase your timer.
Right.
I was having them grab it first, and then I just force a habit. I go, all right, we're ready to go. And I slide in and I pick it up first. And I was like, oh, that was your job. And I was like,
yep.
You know what? This is a learning experience. You're going to learn the opposite, like in the encounter. So they actually got to run nut in every room at one point. It was just,
my problem, Dan, and when I'm trying to Sherpa a raid is I try to do too much. I try to do everything. I try to do everyone's job. And
yeah, you don't
end up doing nobody's. I end up doing nothing. I end up crashing and burning. So, yeah.
When I run, I'm very lucky that I usually have like 3 other people that are really competent
Studs.
with the raids. Know the encounters and how I like to run them, like on stream and everything. I'm really lucky that I have people that are giving of their time to do that. We only take like 1 or 2 new folks along.
I was just going to ask you that next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like
2 maximum.
Anything past that, you are spending a lot of time in it.
Yeah.
And I'm part of being a Sherpa that maybe it's just my outlook on it and my philosophy. Part of my thing is I'm trying to keep the show moving too, because I'm also, while I'm a Sherpa,
you're entertaining.
I'm also trying to entertain. And when we start like sitting around or kind of acting aimless or a little, if it feels like we're spending too much time on something, I get a little antsy. And that's my own anxiety on that front. But I know enough about myself that I'm like, okay, like we'll grab 2. I've got 3 buddies with me, and we're gonna laugh, and we're gonna have a good time, and we're gonna have fun, and people are going to enjoy their time because the people that I surround myself with aren't dicks, generally. That's
so key. It sure is. We have a lot of people like that we have our goop troop in our community that does goop runs every Thursday. It's either a raid or a dungeon. And now let me ask you this: when you're doing a raid Sherpa, are you in charge, or do you let someone else explain an encounter?
Oh, like I'm not in charge. No,
I'm like, someone has to lead the group,
It's like when you're hosting a party, right? You're trying to make sure that the hangout's good.
Gotcha.
And you're taking the temperature of the room while also, like, in the Sherpa role, you're also teaching. But I don't have to be the one that teaches all the time.
That's great to hear.
If there's an encounter where it's like, hey, I need to go rock a piss or like get some water, do you mind explaining this to them? I can trust the people that I've surrounded myself with to teach them how to do it and to be nice about it.
That's great, man. It's great to have people like that. Those are such good resources. Yeah.
Very, very lucky. The helper crew that I have is tremendous.
Want to give a shout out?
I'd be listed off like 30 names.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Don't worry about it. I'll edit that out. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Won't make you look bad, man. No, we're good. I know. I can't remember I won't get into it. Never mind. Since Dan has created content for over 7 years now, and we just talked about how to become a better Sherpa and how to help your community and how to help your friends and clanmates to get through the tough parts of this game, I then shifted gears and asked him if he had any advice for someone who's thinking about getting into content creation or streaming.
I would say, if you're interested in doing it, then you might as well start, trying it, just attempting it. The thing that I learned best when I was getting my reps in,
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to get paid while I got my reps in, like through PD, but it was really just practice and figuring out what my style was for creating for podcasts as well as like for editing and everything else. So you might as well just jump in the deep end and like create with the tools that you have now. I think the other half of that is that you shouldn't overinvest super early. If you have tools at your disposal that are fairly cheap, your quality may be not as good, but you're still getting the reps in. And as you build confidence, as you build audience, you can start investing. Hopefully, like you build an audience that allows you to invest in the tools that you use, and you're able to build out to better tools and better tools as you go along. I've been super lucky in my journey on that, and yeah.
Now you said something there that was really great, is finding your place, and that's one thing I've struggled with. I started YouTubing just recently, and just became a partner, and it's a kind of thing where thanks, man. It's kind of thing where do I fit in the Destiny community? You know, what niche am I gonna, who am I gonna serve here? Who's my viewer, right? And that's great advice, dude.
Yeah, I think another part of that is like when you're first starting out, like making something that you like.
Right.
I think is the biggest part of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making something and you hate making it,
you're not going to last. You're not going to make it.
It's not going to be, it's not going to be fun, and you're going to be upset because something that I've found in my time doing content creation is that when you're not feeling it, you can't expect other people to.
Yeah, good point.
So
the honeymoon period wears off quick. Yeah, if you don't like what you're doing right off the bat, the honeymoon period wears off quick. And your first video that you release, your baby, gets 0 views. You're like, no! it can destroy you. But I think that's it, man. Flex the muscle, start getting your reps in. I say that on our other podcast, and Hazel just rolls his eyes, but it's true, man. You just got to get your reps in, whether it's raiding, getting good at a raid, or doing anything, right? Yeah. Yeah. Good deal. As this was a question of the month on our Guardian Downcast podcast last month, I wanted to ask Dan what he thought was coming our way on the Bungie showcase on August 22nd. I gotta know, man. I gotta know. Mm-hmm. This is our question of the month in our podcast. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen on that August 22nd day? What's Bungie going to do? What's the show?
Okay.
I'm sure you've been asked it several times in your streams.
So, I mean, they're going to show off the final shape, and I think that they're going to show off a little bit of what comes afterward, because there is a lot of talk. There's a lot of confusion, and I don't know where this came from. There's a lot of confusion by people who are like, wait, it's over? Like, Destiny 2 is over? And I just got this game and it's freaking over, bro? Like, I don't know where that came from. But, like, they've said for years that, like, the final shape will be the end of the saga in Destiny 2.
Right. Like,
end of the Light and Dark saga. And that there will probably be something afterward, like a postscript, as it were, that leads into the next thing that they're doing. If you're paying attention right now in game, there's something called Veil Containment that is giving us a lot of breadcrumbs for things in the future. Mm-hmm. And honestly, what I'm expecting is a hype trailer for season 2022.
Of course.
I'm expecting a hype trailer for the final shape. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting an announcement for what the raid is going to be on September 1st.
Okay.
And then I am expecting, like, the directors to go into, like, detail about what final shape individually, the little bits and bobs that will come with final shape, have them talk about new modes. Like, we hear your feedback on this, and talking to a community standpoint on that. And then afterward, that after show that like Hippie and D-Flawless did last year, right?
Right.
So like,
no Vidoc?
It may not be D-Flawless.
Right.
I would love it if it was D-Flawless because that dude's a gem.
I like that guy.
And it's probably, maybe another content creator or somebody from the community team. There's very talented people in their community team.
There's a lot of talent in the community.
Yeah. There's a lot of talent at Bungie. There's a lot of talent in our community. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
That's asking questions of the devs that maybe the community wants to hear. And so that's what I expect.
Okay.
And then they'll do the thing with like the kind of QVC thing of like, and if you get this edition, you get this,
of course,
statue of,
You're going to get the Cade statue again or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
No Vidoc?
There will probably be a Vidoc somewhere down the line.
Right.
Like, Broman brought this up on Destiny Digest, where he was, cause I asked him, I was like, well, like, what do you think that they're going to show on the 22nd? He's like, well, they're now a 2-game studio, so it's probably just going to be like a Bungie showcase. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
You think they're going to talk about Marathon, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I don't see why they wouldn't update on Marathon.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, I expect there to be a little bit of Marathon and a little bit of Chocolate My Peanut Butter. You know what I mean?
I got you. So I'm following it. I got you.
Yeah.
Is there going to be any Crucible talk?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so, because I think that if there's two sectors of the community that do need more information than the PvE side, it's Gambit 100% needs new maps. The game mode's fine. I think the game mode's fine. I think it needs new maps.
Sorry.
And yeah, it needs new maps, and it needs some overhaul when it comes to the loot that comes out of, like, the weapons that come out of it. But I'm speaking as somebody who's played this game for freaking ever, and I have every gun that I could possibly ever need in my toolkit. When it comes to PvP, they have a quote unquote renewed vision for PvP, and I would like to see them double down on that and actually do some overhauling to
I'm there
PvP.
with you, man. I hope so too.
But just not so that I don't see it on my timeline, not selfishly, because like it is like fairly apparent that the Crucible community has some issues with what's going on in Destiny 2.
Sure.
But I want there to be more communication about the future of Crucible and what they're planning on doing with it. And I feel like every year we kind of have that same conversation of like, man, I wish they'd talk more about Crucible.
Yeah.
But, you take the wins where you can. Yeah.
I couldn't let Dan go without asking that ever mysterious question about Destiny 2. Where are we going after the final shape? And Dan gave me the answer that only Dan the man, Danfinity, could give. Where are we going after the final shape?
Wall Street, baby. We're going to Wall Street. And it's basically going to be Wolf on Wall Street, but in space. And instead of Leonardo DiCaprio, like it's Cade 6, baby, and he's got his hair all slicked back, and he's like, you gotta learn, you gotta sell, and he's like shouting into a microphone and everything, and Henry Zabrowski is still gonna be there, and then you know what? We're going to take a snot rocket out into we're going to go past our galaxy, and we're going to go where no 9 has gone before. That's right, Olive Garden. We're going to go to the Olive Garden. That's it.
I love it.
That's the future of Destiny.
I love it, man. I love it. Hey, Dan, thanks for stopping out today, man. This is awesome. It's been a while since I've talked to you, man. It's really good to hear from you. Gosh, man, I used to watch streams, everybody's streams, and I just haven't had time with work and stuff. It's harder to do.
Understandable, man.
But dude, you've been killing it, man. And, I'm so happy for you, man. You're just the nicest guy. And, I hope you and Jenny are doing real well. And, you're flying down from what, Indiana?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool deal. That's where my wife's from. Indianapolis.
Flying out on Thursday and then back on Sunday.
Ooh. Be careful. The humidity is at an all-time high down here. I'm only 40 minutes away, so I'm not. It's just a drive.
I've heard, man. I've heard the water's boiling down there and killing all your coral.
It's terrible, man. I mean, you're going to step out of that plane and go, where's the air? Well, sir,
Indiana is a swamp too.
I've been up there. I've been up there, and I used to visit her grandmother. We used to visit her grandmother every summer in Indianapolis. I know that city pretty well now. I drive her. She gave me her 1976 pristine 4-door Nova, sky blue, no AC, but it had the vent wings in the front. That helped. And it said 96 out. I'm like, it doesn't feel like 96. There's no way it's 96. That bank clock is broken. She goes, no, it's 96 out. I said, no, it's just a different kind of heat down here, man. So just be careful. Yeah. Lots of water, man. Lots of water. So, well.
Oh, absolutely.
Sir, thank you again for coming on. And, if you would please tell people how they can find you out there in the Destinyverse.
Well, hello. My name is Danfinity on just about any microblogging platform that you can find it's at Danfinity where the I's are L's on like Twitter. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. I will forever call it Twitter. It is never I hope it upsets a billionaire. On Threads, I'm on Blue Sky. I actually got Danfinity where the I's are Eyes. And I'm on, what's the other one? There was another one. Hive. I'm Danfinity on that where the I's are Eyes. You can also find me on Instagram where the I's are L's. You can find me on Twitch. Guaranteed 3 days a week. I'm trying to push into 4 and like do some production stuff on the 4th day. But 3 days a week, generally 2 of those are helping Guardians with in-game activity in Destiny 2. You can find me on Discord, discord.gg/Danfinity. And
the beard.
Yeah. On YouTube. Yeah. The whole thing.
Well, thank you again for coming on, and hey, have fun at GCX, man. Hopefully I'll see you down there maybe. We'll have to see.
Absolutely.
Well, there it is. Thanks again to Danfinity for sharing his time with me. Full disclosure, before he came on that interview that night, that man had just finished a 7-hour stream helping Guardians through that tough in-game content. Hey, and if you haven't followed him yet, what are you waiting for? I'll have all his links down in the show description below. Remember to follow me also. I'm at Todd the Gator on YouTube. Remember, that's 2 D's, G-A-T-R. And I have another podcast, Guardian Downcast, where my co-host Hazel and I hear the stories of content creators and community members. You know, those people you game with in a fire team, but you may, kind of be curious what they're all about. So that's where we come in. It's my mission to help new and returning Guardians out there via my YouTube channel and my podcasts. So I hope today's episode gave you at least a small bite of information and inspiration. Thank you all for listening. And later, Guardian.
There used to be, it used to be called like Clan Wars, where you would like.
You talking about Call of Duty?
No.
Okay.
It was Destiny 2 Clan Wars,
really?
And it was a site that for like Iron Banner, they would put different challenges up, and if you did their community challenges, you would rank higher.
Wow.
Against the clans that you were pitted up against. In your bracket of like, if you had like 5 people in your clan, you were in a certain bracket. If you had 100 people in your clan, you were in a certain bracket. And, it was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool thing. I miss it because it's gone now.
We had clan wars in Call of Duty and they did not scale it. We had a clan of, well, what they did is we had a large clan, but it was a casual clan, but they would still stack us up against hardcore, competitive clans, and we would just get slaughtered. And then it divided the community because some people wanted to play it for fun. Some people were more serious, and they destroyed our community. This is long, long ago, but But yeah, I didn't even know they did that. Then they use the API, right, as a scoreboard, right?
Yeah. I mean, like this was at least like 3 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that. Wow, that's great. Now, come on, Bungie, you listening? Come on, Bungie. Get on it. Get on it. There's so much potential in this game. There's so many things they can do. It just sometimes boggles my mind, but I digress.